I was looking for like new challenges, and then Pasi called me up and said that, hey, do you want to come and lead our space and defense activities? And I'm saying, I know nothing about biology, but hey, why not?
Let's do it. Hello, everyone. This is the Space Cafe podcast, and I'm Marcus. So the question of the day is, how do we feed ourselves during those long-lasting, multi-month, multi-year space missions in the future? Seems like a trivial question. Just pack your stuff, whatever you're craving for, and off you go. But of course, we know when weight is an issue, every gram counts, well, things get a little sketchy, so we need solutions. Back in history, when the settlers set out to find new homes, they took their livestock with them, the sheep, the chicken, whatever they needed. Would that be a viable option also for future voyages with rockets to Mars and beyond, or do we need different solutions? I'd like to present today a very interesting solution that even NASA considers as a game-changer solution. And that solution comes from Finland, from a company called Solein Foods. What they did is they just took a little bit of water and added microbes to a process, and that produces protein. It's ingenious, really, really interesting. And they won the NASA Deep Space Food Challenge with that solution. And today with me on the show as a guest is its CEO, Arttu Luukanen from Finland, a physicist. And we would like to discuss today what all that means for future space travel and even beyond, what that could mean for sustainable food production on Earth. It's mind-blowingly interesting, believe me. Off we go. Let's go.
Good. Fantastic. Thanks for taking the time.
Yeah.
A Finnish physicist wins NASA's food competition. This is how a fantastic story could start, a fictional story. In your case, it's a real story. How did all this come into being? Tell me about it. Your background is unusual.
Yes. Okay. So first of all, it was our team that won the competition, not me. So my background, I have a PhD in applied physics. I've had a fairly long academic career. Before I joined Solein Foods, I had my own startup that I ran as a CEO for 8 years. As a spin-off from VTT. VTT is the Technical Research Center of Finland. And at VTT, I was a research professor, did lots of space-related things. I was the director of a sort of a European Space Agency external laboratory there. So we did a lot of space-related things at that time.
What kind of research was that?
Oh, it was really high-frequency radio. So basically millimeter waves, terahertz, all sorts of very, very high-frequency radio sort of instrumentation, basically.
So what's the use case for that?
Well, the laboratory that I was working for, we built one of the receivers for a major science satellite called Planck. And Planck is, it was used to map the cosmic microwave background at those very high radio frequencies. I was a research professor of micro and nano systems, which really kind of related to, let's say, various kind of sensors, especially cryogenic sensors. So actually my PhD is in low temperature physics. It's convenient for a Finn. So I work with superconductors and sensors based on superconductors. So very different kind of domain that I'm currently working at. But kind of the connection with Solein Foods in some ways was established already in, let's say, 2008 or 9, when I met our current CEO, Pasi Vainikka, who was also a researcher at VTT at that time. So I knew the CEO ever since that.
Okay. So what was this, the NASA challenge all about?
So we entered the challenge in 2021.
Was this the reason that you got into the field in the first place?
Not really, because the company actually entered the competition already in 2021. So that was a year before I joined Solein Foods.
Okay.
But then in 2022, I was looking for like new challenges, and then Pasi called me up and said that, hey, do you want to come and lead our space and defense activities? And I'm saying, I know nothing about biology, but hey, why not?
Let's do it.
Let's do it. So I actually joined in the phase 2 of the NASA challenge. And
so what was that challenge about?
So the Deep Space Food Challenge was it's run by the NASA Centennial Challenges. So these are like basically challenges that are open to pretty much everybody, where NASA has identified a difficult problem, and they want to kind of trickle the minds of as many people as possible to come up with ideas on how to solve that problem. So the Deep Space Food Challenge, the motivation for it is that if we're thinking about deep space exploration, and especially, going to Mars and beyond, one of the most difficult things about that is the resupply. And basically you have no capacity of resupplying missions, especially during transit. I mean, you could send, say, food and water and land it on Mars and have it wait there for the cruise. But it's really not a possibility because of the mass involved, and also the fact that, food degrades over time, the nutritional value degrades. So
greenhouses are not a thing because it's you can't make sure that those greenhouses will stay alive.
Well, I mean, farming of some sort will probably be part of that sort of deep space food system. So people have done experiments on aeroponic farming. I mean, there are experiments on the ISS as we speak, where the astronauts are growing, salad and tomatoes and whatnot. So it's very likely that there will be some sort of farming as part of the food system. But kind of one of the big problems about the food system is the protein, because the human body needs protein not just to maintain muscle mass, but actually the so-called 9 essential amino acids. These are amino acids that our body cannot metabolize. They are super important for your brain. So if you have a crew that's on a 500-day Mars mission, which is basically the minimum duration, if you don't get those essential amino acids, the crew will be not functioning to 100% by the end of the mission. And obviously, being an astronaut going to Mars, you want to be performing at 100%
absolutely
throughout the mission.
So what would be a natural source of protein? You could bring animals, of course.
Well, animals, it's a bit difficult because they're kind of high maintenance.
Yeah.
And you need to bring food for the animals. And animals are actually extremely inefficient in turning, kilowatt hours to calories.
Yeah.
So animals are, I don't think that's going to be an option. I mean, one could argue about insects. I am a bit skeptical about the insects as well because they have a brain and they have free will. So it's a potential contamination problem.
Yeah.
And they are also kind of high maintenance. Microbes are nice because they have no brain, they have no free will. All they want to do is just multiply.
Yeah. And that was your crack in the riddle that you wanted to work into.
Yeah. So first of all, what we do, which is gas fermentation, is incredibly efficient in turning energy into edible biomass. It's something like 100 times more energy efficient than an animal. That's one thing. The other thing, which is kind of the special thing about this fermentation method that we use, which is gas fermentation of CO2 and hydrogen, is the fact that if you think about any space habitat, whether it's an orbiting space station, a lunar base, or a base on Mars, there is a system that's called the Environmental Control Life Support System, or ECLSS, with the purpose of keeping the crew alive. And what it does, it produces the oxygen for the crew. So the oxygen is actually generated from water by splitting water into hydrogen and oxygen. But currently, the hydrogen that is a byproduct of this oxygen generation is vented, so it's not used. Same thing happens with the CO2. So the carbon dioxide that is the crew's metabolism is they exhale CO2. That is also vented. Because these two gases are vented, there's a net loss of water. But if we introduce this gas fermentation technique that we do to produce protein, we can close those loops, those gas loops, which from a purely mass standpoint, it's like 75% of our mass savings is water and 25% is the food that we can produce at site. So we would actually form a part of the life support system So CO2 and hydrogen in, food out, and water out. So the byproduct of this fermentation process is water.
You mean food out? What kind of food are we talking about?
So in the Deep Space Food Challenge kind of concept that we designed there, we envision a system that will generate this kind of so it's microbial protein with water. So it's this kind of a somewhat thick liquid that has a flavor of very, very delicate flavor of umami. So
that's the natural flavor.
That's the natural flavor of it. So the actually protein tastes like umami. Maybe some nuttiness and a little bit sort of kind of mushroomy notes here and there. But the idea is that the end product will be this kind of a thick liquid. You could drink it right away. It's actually quite palatable. Or if you add, say, maybe sugar, some vanilla, that's your protein shake. So you would get your daily, let's say, 2 or 3 protein shakes a day for the crew, for each crew member.
That triggers my memory to Solein. Do you remember that one?
Yeah. Solein.
I don't know if it's still around, but
Solein, yeah.
Solein. I think Solein was also an attempt to make our nutrition more efficient by just drinking and intaking the pure ingredients of food without the bells and whistles of good taste.
Yes. I'm not sure if they are around. I mean, there is a good question, and I think it's kind of slightly beyond us. Is that if you think of the ISS or any of the, let's say, near future habitats, there's no such thing as a kitchen there. I mean, the kitchen is, you have an option for cold water or hot water. So that limits what you can do.
Your options,
right?
You can cook pasta.
Yeah, well, you potentially could. I mean, I don't think there's anything that you can boil. But indeed, I think one missing technology gap here is that even if you have like a greenhouse, you have a bioprocess that's producing the protein, how do you turn those ingredients into, a dozen recipes? So there needs to be some technology development on how we actually develop a kitchen that's space compatible. So I've been recently looking a lot at like cooking robots. You can buy these things nowadays. So they have like magazines for ingredients, and then it's got an arm, and it does the whole thing. So something like that, but something that's microgravity or reduced gravity compatible would be quite interesting.
How does it work today? So how do astronauts feed themselves today?
So most of it, obviously, at LEO and in the future Artemis missions to the moon, it's pack and go, meaning that all the food is launched with either supply missions or with the crew to the habitat. So they have canned foods, they have freeze-dried foods, which are then rehydrated with either cold or hot water. They have what's called a bonus food, at least the ESA astronauts, which means that they can select some of their favorite dishes that they get, not like every day, but maybe 3 times during the mission or something. They get this bonus food. So it's all packed, either dehydrated or canned stuff. And the cans, there's a heater that you can heat the food cans at the ISS. So you don't have to eat like, cold canned food. So there's quite a bit of variability because of that, because obviously you can have many, many different foodstuffs launched up with the crews. So that's the good thing. The bad thing is the mass, because, resupplying even a LEO habitat is tens of thousands of dollars per kilogram. So a can of food is thousands of dollars.
So all you need is hydrogen, CO2. No, hydrogen you don't need. You need.
We need hydrogen. So our organism, which is a hydrogen oxidizing bacteria, is a bit different. Like if you compare with algae, so algae uses light as the energy source. This microbe that we have discovered from the Finnish countryside, it uses hydrogen as the energy source, and it uses that energy then to sequester CO2.
Interesting. Tell us everything. How did you come across that bacterium?
So both luck and hard work, maybe more of hard work than luck. But in the beginning of the company, so 2017-18, the biology team at Solar Foods was basically screening for suitable hydrogen oxidizing bacteria from environmental samples. So thousands and thousands of environmental samples were collected, and then they were fermented in our biology laboratory, looking for bacteria that grows well with hydrogen and CO2. And then they found this specific strain of a known bacteria, but this strain was new to science. And then what was done, that strain of bacteria, because it was a new strain, Solar Foods got a utility patent for it. So we have basically a proprietary, our own production organism that we can use then to produce food.
Interesting. So how does the whole fermentation process work? You have hydrogen,
right? So
in a container, and then you throw the bacterium onto it.
Yeah. So we've just completed our first factory just about a year ago in Finland. We make the hydrogen on site. So we have a 1.5 megawatt electrolyzer that splits water into hydrogen and oxygen. We throw the oxygen away because we don't need it that much. And then the hydrogen is put into this big tank, which is the bioreactor. And together with the hydrogen, we have inside the tank, we have what's called growth media, which is basically water. It's 95% water, but it's got a kind of pinch of minerals, same minerals that plants take from the ground with their roots. So then we take living cells, we put those also into the tank. And, we've generated perfect conditions for that the microbe likes, and it starts kind of fulfilling its purpose in life, which is to multiply. And then we feed these gases in bubbles, so hydrogen and CO2. There's a big mixer that's stirring everything so that ensures that every cell in that big 20,000 liter reactor has everything it needs to multiply. So if we start from cold, it takes a few days that we reach a sufficient biomass density. And then we start harvest. So we start harvesting biomass and growth media out of the tank, then we replaced new growth media at the same volumetric rate. So it's like a continuous harvest.
And then what you harvest is almost pure protein.
Yeah, I mean, at that stage, it's still, there's lots of water. So the rest of the process is very close to what, if you were to go to a dairy, let's say like a milk powder plant. So we do pasteurization, same as you do with milk. So pasteurization means that we kill the microbes. Then we do centrifugal separation. So we have a separator that separates majority of the water and the growth media, which is then recycled back into the tank, the bioreactor. And then this kind of thick liquid that it's at that stage goes into what's called spray drying. So these are like these sort of cyclonic, conical, big cones where we spray the liquid with the biomass into these cones, and then there's hot air that then removes the rest of the water. And then there's the end product is basically like this dry powder, similar to like milk powder, but has this kind of a yellowish color. The yellow color is because it's very rich on on carotenoids, carotenoids like beta carotene and things like that. And that is a natural color of this protein.
Does your team already use it to feed themselves?
I've had many Solein dishes when I've been entertaining guests. So we actually at the factory we have not only this big bioprocess, and I should by the way say that 20,000 liter bioreactor, which is like 2.5 meters across and 6 meters tall, produce the same amount of protein that 300 dairy cows. Same day, 300 cows.
So 10,000 liters.
20,000 liters.
20,000 liters.
Yeah. So it's equal to 300 cows.
This is crazy.
Yes. And all 50 egg-laying chickens. Same protein output per day. So yes, and you asked about, have we eaten it? Yes. We actually have quite a sizable food team. So one thing is not only that you can produce an ingredient, but the second thing is how do you use it in recipes? So we have a full team of food scientists who are developing applications, so recipes for our product. And we also have a very, very excellent chef. He's worked in Michelin star restaurants.
Really?
Fantastic. So he's our in-house chef. And at the factory, we have a demo kitchen. That's, if you come to the building and, you should come and visit us. You come to the building, this big atrium space, and then we have this big kitchen there, like open kitchen. And then Miikka Manninen and our Solein chef then makes various sorts of dishes for our guests. So if I need to mention some of my favorites, one of my favorites is this cream cheese ravioli. So in the pasta, the ravioli, there's no egg. So the egg protein has been replaced by Solein. And then the cream cheese inside has no dairy. and it's delicious. One thing that Mika told me, which is quite exciting, was that for homemade pasta, Solein actually works better than eggs, because when you make pasta, you roll it out. It has this tendency of tearing, and you have to add like flour, and then when it tears, you need to roll it back into the ball and then lay out again. But for some technomechanical property of Solein, it doesn't tear as easily. So he says that he can make the pasta in like 1/3 the time that it would take for like regular pasta now. Then there's one of my other favorites is ice cream. So we have Solein ice cream where there's no dairy. I don't know if you have ever had like a vegan ice cream.
Yes.
But it's a little bit disappointing.
Yes, it is.
So it lacks the creaminess and there's this watery aftertaste which kind of disappears right away. But Solein ice cream, even though it's completely vegan, dairy-free, gluten-free, it has the same creaminess as regular ice cream does. And I think that's going to be a big deal.
Fantastic. You know what's really interesting to me is that, in fact, all you need is water for all this, and your bacterium, of course.
Right.
Because I think we should be a lot more, even more appreciative of water. Because I think when it comes to space travel, water gives us propellant.
Right.
And water gives us food. So it's insane.
Yeah, it's all centered around water. And actually, one of the, let's say, people often ask me, why do you do the space thing? Why don't you just try to fix mothership Earth? You know, we have problems here and all that. But the space challenge is an excellent sort of a analog of a completely circular economy.
Yes.
So we're utilizing basically all the waste resources that are available and turning that into edible calories. And if we could actually utilize the same principles here in our cities, for instance, we could basically make everything pretty much sort of environmentally neutral. I mean, that we wouldn't be. So our method of producing food is one of the greatest gifts that we can give for the planet, is that we don't need to cut forests down into fields.
Kill animals.
And we can reforest, vast areas of the planet. We can basically we can turn areas of the planet that we consider as incompatible with food production. We can turn those into bread baskets. So we could populate Sahara desert with factories because there's lots of solar power and wind power available.
This sounds like a no-brainer. So where's the catch? Where's the problem?
I think there's really these things are expensive and slow. There are a couple of reasons for that. So one thing is that we are basically building a completely new infrastructure. So we can so-called brownfield or repurpose, existing factories. We actually have to build the factories from the scratch. They are quite sizable investments. So this, our factory 01, that's in Finland, that was a 42 million euro investment, and it's just a scaling demonstrator. It's not an industrial scale plant. I mean, 160 tons or roughly 200 tons of protein per year sounds like a lot, but it's really not much at all. So for us to become an industrial protein production company, we need to scale that up by a factor of 100. And then you start talking about capital investments that can range anywhere between 100 to 300 million. And this is.
But look at the investments in AI these days. So 300 million is nothing.
Well, AI is, of course, a lot different in terms of business because it has no capital expenditure or very little capital expenditure. We are capital expenditure heavy, and it is a challenge to attract those kind of funds for a company that's basically at pre-revenue status. Because it's kind of a chicken and egg problem that, a lot of big food manufacturers are super interested about what we do. They would like to, they are potentially willing and very interested in using our protein as their ingredient, but they have the question, can they actually produce it at the quantities that they say? Now, if we had some big food manufacturing company come to us and, say that, okay, here's a piece of paper, we will buy your full annual production of your next factory once you get it finished. That's a paper that we could go to bank with.
Yes.
So the bank would loan the money.
Yes.
But the chicken and egg here is that, big food manufacturers are very, very, careful on what they do, and changing an ingredient in some major production line. It's also kind of a capital investment for them. So there's a risk, which I think now there's like this little bit of a waiting that they want to see that we can produce at quantity. We have now demonstrated our ability to scale with our first factory, even though it's not at the 10,000 tons, 250 million meals a year scale. But we believe that in the coming near future, I think this is going to happen.
How does this compare to the per capita costs, daily per capita costs for protein intake?
Yeah. So at the moment, at this scale that we're now, our price point is higher than, let's say, if you compare with pea or soy protein, which is okay because we're actually now at first we are focusing at sports and performance nutrition market in the US, where the tolerance for higher price is there because it's a premium product. We basically compete there with whey protein extract, but our protein is, from a nutritional standpoint, it's superior and actually more palatable than whey protein. But once we get to that sort of industrial scale, so 10,000 tons per year, our projections show that we will be actually price point competitive with pea or soy or the other, vegetable-based proteins. So our idea is not to become like an elite, only for the rich, kind of a luxury protein. Yeah. We want to become the everyday staple protein. So basically eliminating the use of milk or eggs in many, manufactured food goods.
I could imagine that this is not super easy because this is a very traditional and very powerful and dominant industry.
Sure.
The dairy industry, the meat industry. So do you currently even face a headwind resistance from that side?
I personally, I can't really maybe comment on that very well, but obviously we are not we don't want to get into this situation where it's like either or, that, we're kind of against farmers or, all that. Our argument would be that 40% of habitable land on the planet is currently used by agriculture. So expanding agriculture is probably not an option. 1/3 of the greenhouse gas emissions, anthropogenic greenhouse gas emissions is due to the food system. So we really don't have much room to expand.
Yeah.
We still have a population of the planet that's growing, so we need to address that. But I think there could be a world, and we are not arguing that people shouldn't eat meat or drink milk. It's not what we're saying, not at all. But maybe even for farmers, it's a more attractive proposition that instead of producing this kind of low margin, everyday bulk protein, which is heavily subsidized, by the way, could they maybe generate more profits from let's say, more premium protein products like steaks and whatnot? So there's going to be some changes, and obviously these things won't change overnight. There's also regulatory hurdles. So we are considered as a novel food in Europe. Novel foods are defined as foods which haven't been consumed in any substantial quantities before the year 1997. And that means that we need a regulatory approval in many markets. So in Europe, it's the European Food Safety Association that does this. And it's a major, it's a huge amount of work because you have to basically do analytics in external accredited laboratories for everything, like allergenity, genotoxicity, the nutritional benefits, everything. It costs millions and it takes years. But we have now actually received our first regulatory approval, first in Singapore in 2022. We filed in 2021 also for Europe, but the European approval is a bit slow. We are expecting it to come out next year, 2026. And in the US, we have now reached this what's called self-affirmed GRAS, so generally regarded as safe status, which allows us to now start, selling here in the US.
Interesting. So if money was not an issue, when would you be available to deliver at scale?
Well, building the factory takes some time, maybe a year or something.
Okay.
But if we started building it now, maybe in a year and a half time.
Okay.
Basically.
Okay. Let's go back into space.
Yep.
So all you need is the water. You would need to dig for water. I mean, like this is something that that space exploration is intending to do anyways,
right.
To find water. Is there a particular, Do you think as a physicist that the water on Mars, for example, is that a resource, or do we know if the water is a potable resource or a consumable resource on different celestial bodies? Or could it be something that we cannot consume because it's the wrong water?
No, I think, I mean, obviously you would need to filter and purify it. I believe that the water will be a consumable resource for drinking. But I also think that even though, I mean, one of the major motivations for finding water on Moon and Mars is the making of propellant.
Yes.
Okay. So if you're then thinking about quantities, if you're making propellant, you're using tons and tons of water. So the human need for that is a microscopic fraction of it. I still think that it makes sense, even if we're on Moon and we have found big ice deposits, it still makes sense to close the loops and have the kind of the biosphere as close as possible. Because even though we have ice on the Moon and on Mars, extracting it is probably still going to be somewhat expensive, and the more you can save in your environmental control life support system, it's better. Even though the quantities that the humans need consume in comparison to the quantities that the rockets need there's a vast difference in scales.
As we all know, there are Mars mission on the very near horizon. I don't know if it's a reality, but SpaceX keep telling us that they want to start going in a couple of years even. So is there already, do you know if they have covered the food problem, or is there communication going on between you?
Yeah, it's a good question. I mean, SpaceX are not very open about what they do. I've not noticed that they would be having much activity at all at this stage on the food system side. I think they're focusing on the more present issues. They need to get Starship, going, and there's the orbital refueling and all these. There are many things that they need to accomplish before even starting to think about going to Moon. So I believe that they're probably scanning the landscape for potential solutions that could then be later incorporated as part of their habitats. So I think it's a thing that they will activate. There's also, NASA has also identified, well, actually not NASA, but the national academies in the US came out late last year with their sort of what's called decadal survey for NASA. So they do this every 10 years. And they identify like focus areas where NASA should really put some effort into. And one of the focus areas that the academies basically, they suggest that NASA should tenfold increase their R&D efforts on bioregenerative life support, because that's going to be the one that will be needed once we start going to Mars and once we start having cities on Mars and everything. So this bioregenerative life support systems, which is what we do, is very much in the focus of the agencies. So I think it's a question of time when the SpaceX, feel like now it's close enough that they have to start thinking about how we're going to eat. They have massive cargo capacity, so obviously they potentially could be just sending all the food up there.
They could bring the sheep.
Well, potentially, yeah, but even though they have massive cargo capacity, for a 500-day mission, you'll still have some issues with like food degradation over the time. So having a fresh nutrition source on board is probably mandatory anyway.
Yeah. So what do you think, your personal take on our interplanetary endeavors as humans? Because I keep pondering on this show our very special pocket in time that we live in as humans, as Homo sapiens. After 200,000 years, we're finally literally growing wings and upward momentum. Do you think this is the moment? It's baby steps still, but do you think it's a moment where we're starting to leave the planet?
I think so. I'm a little bit skeptical about we're not. So biology doesn't really do well spaceflight. We're not designed to
space
enjoy
will
space.
Kill us.
Yeah, space will kill us. So totally confident that, human missions to Mars will happen sooner or later. And I think it's also inevitable that we will have permanent presence there sooner or later. Whether we will go even further, I don't know. I mean, Jupiter is awfully far away and kind of a nasty environment to begin with. This ties in with AI. I mean, so when it comes to like conquering the galaxy, I don't think we're going to do that as a biological species.
And using robots, maybe.
Right, Van Allen probes, basically.
Yes.
So Van Allen probes are interesting because, if you have like the self-replicating capacity, you're basically conquering the galaxy in 1 million years, which is it's a flat blink of an eye in the universe.
Really?
Yes, because of the exponential growth.
Yeah.
It's only 1 million years, which is incredible. There are some fantastic science fiction books on this, by the way, which I've quite recently read.
What's the title?
Bobbyverse. We Are Bob.
We Are Bob.
Yeah, so it's about this software engineer who has his brain basically turned into silicon. Mm-hmm. He dies, and then he finds himself to be the controlling entity of a Van Allen probe. And then he replicates himself to thousands of Bobs that then conquer the galaxy. It's hilarious. I recommend it.
Fantastic. Let's use that wonderful momentum. So how far out is something like this? Is this pure science fiction? Or could we build some? I mean, like robotics is a growing thing at the moment.
Right.
So we have the AI strand, but at the same time, there's a whole lot going on in robotics, as we know. It's not so popular.
Yep.
But where do we stand in all of that if we want to build those Van Allen Bobs?
Yeah. Well, I guess, with respect to like AI and large language models, I mean, things are moving at the pace where it's difficult to follow what's happening. So I would assume that from let's say, purely controlling entities, intelligence, decision-making, I think we're not that far away at all. I think the main difficulties there would probably reside on how we extract resources from asteroids and turn those into spaceships. Mm-hmm. So having the technology to extract ore from an asteroid and then turning that into metal, and then shaping that metal and welding it and all these sort of things. How to replicate machines that replicate themselves is really the I guess we could call it the singularity. I mean,
but it's like the stem cells we have in our bodies that differentiate then into all the things you want. So this is the Van Allen idea.
Yes. Von Neumann probes.
Von Neumann probes.
Von Neumann probes. Yeah. So not Van Allen. Von Neumann, mathematician who came up with this idea. So yeah. But indeed, the singularity is when we learn to design machines that can then replicate themselves and design new machines. That's probably still some time away. I mean, decades, if not more, before we can reach actually that kind of autonomy. But things are moving at exponential scale, so it's very difficult to look in the future. You always look in the past, and it's kind of linear. But when you're on an exponential curve, it's very, very difficult to see what's happening.
What's your best guess? Will we still live, be alive on this planet when we have the first generation to live in space?
I think
outside of Earth?
Yeah, I think so. I mean, I think this colonization or settlement of Mars is maybe the better term. Will happen in the next, I think, in the 2040s.
2040s.
Yeah.
I recently spoke with a planetary scientist, Luciano IS from La Sapienza University. He was part of the Cassini mission.
Oh, wow.
And he said as a planetary scientist, he finds it entertaining that we keep forgetting, Elon Musk keeps forgetting the radiation problem.
Right.
Because you as a physicist will know this a lot better. Than, there is no solution on the horizon whatsoever. How to deal with radiation. And he said that 50% of space travelers will not come home again after a Mars mission. So would you agree to this?
Absolutely. I mean, when we are orbiting the Earth at, the ISS height, 450 kilometers, we are protected by the Van Allen belts. That's where I got the, So the radiation environment at the ISS is actually pretty benign. But as soon as you leave Earth orbit and kind of the magnetic bubble that our magnetosphere produces, indeed, you are subject to, massive amounts of radiation, primarily from the sun. So, the sun is producing flares and coronal mass ejections. There's lots of also X-rays and gamma rays. You have like these incredibly energetic cosmic particles. I think I read somewhere that some of these particles have the same kinetic energy as a baseball when it's thrown.
No.
Yes. So little particle with that sort of kinetic energy has, potential to cause enormous amount of damage to your DNA and all that. It is a big problem, I'm sure, for all biology, including humans. People are looking at can we produce shelters, maybe having the water reservoir of the ship kind of shielding one part of the ship. So if there's a big sort of radiation event, that the crew would shelter there.
Quite a bit of mass.
It's quite a bit of mass, and I'm not sure. I'm really not an expert on this field, so I don't know how effective will that be. But it's absolutely true. I mean, so maybe you said only old people, because old people actually deal with radiation better than young people. So send 80-year-olds.
You mean like because of the time span left? Of the cell, because the cells divide slower.
Exactly. Okay. Yeah, right. So old people deal with radiation apparently better than young people.
I like that. That would be a nice headline. Send old people.
Yeah, octogenarians.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Fantastic. You were far from being an octogenarian, but would you go?
Absolutely. I actually was an astronaut candidate in 2008.
You were.
So I applied for ESA. Because it's been a dream, and I thought, what the hell, let's put my application in. I actually got pretty far. I got to the last 2% out of the 14,000 applicants. So
14,000.
Yeah, so there was 192 of us left when I got disqualified. I was, I think, a little bit old. I was 38 at the time. And they only hire 20-year-olds. So I didn't get to go, but it was a super interesting experience.
Is it still like in the Apollo days that you need to be the superhero type person, like the athlete,
you have to be in relatively good shape.
Yeah.
And you have to be stable, mentally stable, and you have to be kind of resilient. Very good at multitasking. So you have to have pretty good cognition and coordination and whatnot. I didn't actually get to the point where we were subject to any physical testing, so it was all psychological.
Okay.
Throughout those stages that I went through, but yeah, you have to be in shape because obviously it's a big investment to an astronaut, and the agencies want to have a good shelf life. That if you have to wait for a flight, you don't have to wait for that long. But
we know all those science fiction movies and how it turns out in the end when one starts to go crazy.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, but absolutely. And I think it's also the access to space is very much changing thanks to, because it's becoming cheaper. So I think, because until now, I can't remember what's the exact number, but it's only 200 humans that have been up there. I mean, it's not a large number of people, but that will change. Thanks to the fact that the launch costs are lower. If Starship, once it's ready, there's a passenger version, there could be 100 passengers that go up in a single launch. So those seats are going to be a lot less expensive than the seats currently. So I think in the future we will have regular people, not just billionaires and millionaires, but also regular people will actually get access to space.
So is Finland's place in space in the future nutrition?
No, I mean, Finnish space ecosystem is actually everything else but this. So Finland, amongst one of the last member states of ESA, we joined the Human and Robotic Exploration Program, the E3P program, only in 2022. So Finland has had no exploration-related ESA activity, basically, until now. Finland is, very good at doing other things in space. So we have some incredible companies like ICEYE. ICEYE it was a startup that started building synthetic aperture radar satellites. And they are the market leader currently, globally market leader of having a fleet of synthetic aperture radar satellites. Then
what is that? So
synthetic aperture radar is basically, it's a radar. So it's got this kind of a boom that has these transceivers that are sending radio frequency signals down to Earth. And then they are measuring the echo. And they basically, there's no lens or telescope, but the lens or the telescope is in the software. So the software basically does the transformations to turn those echoes into images. And because it's a radar, it means that it's a ranging instrument. They actually get like 3D imagery of Earth. So it's very good at doing things like tracking ships or tracking traffic on ground, or looking at morphological changes on the ground due to maybe floods and things like that. Very, very important for military. So ISI actually so Ukraine is using actually some of ISI's satellites for their intelligence gathering. Then we have Kuva Space, another company. Kuva Space is doing a little bit similar things, but they are building what's called hyperspectral imaging satellites. So they have basically these very, very clever sensors that can measure optical light at very broad bandwidth. So they can do visible light, near infrared, and potentially UV. So that is super useful for people like farmers, because they can look at the growth cycles of plants and all this, and hydration of fields and growth of the plants and crops and whatnot. And they are also going up there. Then we have lots of communication business in space. So actually Nokia, unfortunately,
Nokia is still around?
Oh yeah, but they are mostly on the network side. So the mobile handset business, it doesn't exist anymore. But Nokia is actually the company that's building a 4G network on the moon. So there will be a cell phone network. You'll get internet on the moon. They actually had some instrumentation on the moon lander that unfortunately kind of tilted on its side 2 days ago. IM-2, Intelligent Machines lunar lander. So Nokia had something on board of that lander.
Fantastic. Arttu, you already mentioned you would immediately go into space. What would be your favorite place to be?
I think the moon.
The moon.
Yeah.
Because it's
Mars
close.
is too far. Too far, too early. But moon, yeah, definitely.
I'm asking because we have a playlist on Spotify. And the playlist is called the Playlist for the Aspiring Space Traveler.
Yeah.
And each guest gets to contribute one of their tunes they would not want to miss on that boring journey.
Okay.
Which is, what's your contribution?
Let's see. I'm trying to remember the name of the song now. There's this progressive rock band that I used to listen to a lot. So Rush,
fantastic.
Rush. They have, what is it called? Countdown. But they actually made a song about the launch of the space shuttle, the first launch of the space shuttle, and it has this wonderful kind of a build up to the the countdown, and it's very, very sort of space inspired.
Fantastic. And last question. This show is called the Space Cafe Podcast. Coffee place. We're not having coffee, by the way.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, we should. Yeah. Anyways, now and then you go into coffee places to get a shot of energy by drinking an espresso, strong coffee. I would like to challenge you now to share an espresso for the mind with me, for the audience. What could be a shot of inspiration you can think of for the audience? What could be an inspiring idea you would like to share?
Wow. Not a small question.
Any kind of topic.
Any kind of topic. Wow, that's a big idea.
Take your time.
Yeah. Okay. I guess it's not an idea, but let's say a state of mind. Have faith. Be hopeful. Even though today's world, our politics, everything looks like terrible. We have wars, everything going on. But we're really just only starting as species. There are big problems with the environment, climate change and all that, but we're already coming up with solutions that will fix that. So especially for the young kids, the teenagers who may be feeling a little bit, let's say, stressed out about their future, have faith. It's all going to work out.
Fantastic. I think what each and everyone can do is to also work on our own software to improve ourselves as human beings. So not only improve the technology, but also improve ourselves as humans.
And have that space perspective. I mean, it's somebody actually said this during the festival here, that it should be mandatory that our leaders were sent up to the space station for like 2 months and figure things out together. because
locked in
the space station for 2 months. Have Xi and Trump and Putin and everybody go up there, because once you get the space perspective,
the overview effect.
The overview effect, where you realize that what a fragile little planet we have. You see no borders. We are sharing the same biosphere as species with other species. It's time to cast away this Cro-Magnon mentality of tribalism. Having sticks, eating each other. Now the sticks are nukes.
That's what we're doing right now.
Right. I mean,
because we're lacking the perspective.
We are lacking the perspective, and if there's anything that worries me is, of course, the fact that if we compare ourselves from an intelligence standpoint to Cro-Magnons, the humans of 100,000 years ago, we are not any more intelligent than they were.
That's interesting.
But our technology, we have now the technology and the capacity to wreak enormous destruction with the same intelligence that we had 100,000 years ago, but with technology that has basically, planetary influence. So there we need to improve ourselves.
That's crazy.
We need to understand the responsibility that brings. That we're not smarter, but we have these tools.
We have better sticks.
We have better sticks. Yeah, right. So
that's interesting. So we could, in fact, sit here with a person from 100,000 years ago.
Yeah.
And have a conversation, provided we speak the same language.
Right.
Have a conversation. They would maybe marvel at the world we built, the sticks we have, cars, the new horses we're using.
Right.
But still, we could have a meaningful discussion.
Absolutely. And that's actually the times perspective when you go back. And this actually is a good way to kind of visualize exponential growth, is that if you take the person from 100,000 years ago and you take him to 10,000 years ago, he would barely notice a difference. Right?
That's right.
You take the person from 10,000 years ago, take him 1,000 years ago. Again, some difference, there is agriculture, some pretty big change, but nothing that, would.
Yeah.
And now you take the person from 1,000 years ago into today's world.
Yes.
They would faint.
Yes.
So.
But take our grandparents. I mean, my grandparents are not alive anymore, but they started in the beginning of the 20th century.
Right.
So just imagine you had the cars, the beginning of the cars, and the trains and whatnot.
My grandfather was born in 1898. 1898.
Wow.
So he's dead. He's long gone, but imagine the world of 1898 and bring him today's world. He would have some time had some challenge to deal with things, I'm sure.
Arttu, what do we do with that? What do we do with this understanding? Because it's getting ever more intense. The time spans we need to get in our minds, in our heads, are getting ever smaller and smaller, and ever more things are happening.
Right. Yeah, I mean, it's good to be offline a while, enjoy the nature.
Finland.
In Finland, everybody has a mökki, so, like a country place. So you go there.
Sauna.
Have sauna, you look at the lakes, you listen to the birds.
Do you do that?
Yes. It's really, I need to do it regularly to keep myself sane. Nothing beats like a sauna and the sunset and the birds singing, and that is the best. And then you're not worrying about things in the world.
Arttu, thank you so much for taking the time.
No, it's been a pleasure. Thank you, Marcus.
Isn't that crazy? Water and microbes. All you need is just water. It's really the source of life, it seems. I mean, you can use water as a rocket fuel. You can use it to hydrate yourself. And you can use it to produce protein. What an ingenious solution nature has provided. Really, really interesting. So, if you liked the show, the content you heard as much as I did, please consider sharing it with a friend. Just pass it on to someone where you think, hey, this could be of interest to someone as a gift, out of nowhere. What a surprise that could be. Just think about it. Who could be a person that could be interested in something like that? Other than that, please find us on Substack. Yes, we found our way to Substack. I keep writing posts now and then, so please subscribe on Substack. Other than that, you'll find me on LinkedIn. And yeah, I'm looking forward to sharing crazy news stories with you in 2 weeks from now. Thanks for listening. Thanks for your loyalty. Bye-bye.